Coco Chanel was not only ahead of her time, she was ahead of herself. She created timeless designs that are still popular today. She revolutionized women's fashions in the early 20th century and established herself as a fashion icon. Gabrielle Chanel was born in Saumur, France in 1883 in a poorhouse. Her mother died when she was 6 and her father abandoned her in an orphanage. The nuns who were raising her taught her how to sew, according to biography.com. The nuns even helped her secure a job as a seamstress. Ingrid Sishi of Time.com notes that Chanel left the orphanage to become a cabaret singer, much to the chagrin of the nuns. It was during her stint as a cabaret singer that she adopted the name Coco. According to Encyclopedia.com, when Chanel became the mistress of a well-to-do officer named Etienne Balsan, she started talking about becoming a hat maker. It was actually his best friend, who was a wealthy industrialist named Arthur Boy Capet, with whom she fell in love. And both of those men actually helped her fund her trip to Paris and the opening of her first store in 1920. She gained a following for her hats among the society ladies and became quite famous. And she decided to parlay her talents into designing clothes. In the book Coco Chanel, The Legend and the Life by Justine Picardi, Coco accidentally burns her long hair one day while getting ready to go to the opera. She had long braids that were on top of her hair, and she felt that all of that hair was very, very stifling. And when she was getting ready to go out, she was washing her hair, and the hot water pilot went out, so she decided to try to fix it, and it actually exploded, and it burned the ends of the braids on her hair. So she decided to take some scissors and cut off her braids, and she gave herself the iconic bob that became a very popular hairstyle in the 1920s. Also at that time, she developed the little black dress, which would become a fashion staple for every woman to this day. She actually became very familiar with the material jersey. It was actually used for men's underwear at the time. But as noted by Fifi Sun of Time.com, the fabric draped well and it suited her designs, which were simple, practical, and often inspired by menswear. In 1926, Vogue magazine deemed her little black dress a fashion basic and basically compared it to the Ford. Chanel also plays up her iconic accessories, which are multiple strands of pearls, two-tone ballet flats, and quilted bags with a chain strap, which are all still very prevalent in fashion today. Lauren Goldstein of Time.com brings attention to perhaps her most iconic fashion design, which was the Chanel jacket. It was introduced in 1936 in tweed. Coco loved tweed fabric, even though it was cheap and not luxurious. All she did was she would line it in fur and up the price and the status. When the stock market would crash in 1938, women's fashions would also change. They would become more form-fitting because extra fabric wasn't available. So Chanel followed the trend, and her clothes became tighter in the waist and got fuller shoulders. In 1954, her shrugged-on silhouette was inspired by when she actually took one of her lover's sweaters and she put it on, she cut it down the middle, belted it, and sewed ribbon on the edges, and decided it was a fabulous sweater for women. And finally, in 1955, the classic Chanel suit, which is still very, very amongst fashion people today, was developed, and it was the contrasting trim. It is a staple for ladies who lunch still today. So I have a booklet here with, I will go through. This is a picture of Coco Chanel with, I have the pearl strands. This is her pearl strands she was very famous for. This is circa 1936. This is one of her evening gowns. See, she did the very form-fitting waist, but everything else was really relaxed. This is very classic flapper dress, which was circa 1926, and she was basically the designer of the 1920s. So all of those flapper designs with the bobbed hair and these dresses came from Coco Chanel herself. She was very against corsets and everything that had been popular before her time, so everything just hung and draped and was very easy to move in. This is a classic Chanel jacket, and here, this is where 1938, when the stock market crashed, you can see the tight waist and the full shoulders. And then last, over here, this is the classic Chanel suit that is still very popular today with ladies who lunch with a contrasting trim. In 1923, Coco will launch her perfume, Chanel No. 5. This is actually the classic Chanel No. 5 bottle. It has been this way since she invented it. According to her obituary in the New York Times in 1971, it was called simply No. 5 because she had been told by a fortune teller that No. 5 was her lucky number. And it was, because No. 5 made Coco a millionaire. At the beginning of World War II, Coco would close up shop amidst press about her anti-Semitism and homophobia. She took up living with a Nazi shoulder at the Ritz Hotel in Paris and lived in exile for 15 years. She made a comeback to fashion in 1954, but the word disgrace would always be attached to her name. Gabrielle Coco Chanel died peacefully in her apartment at the Ritz Hotel in 1971. She was 87 years old. Coco Chanel definitely left a mark on the fashion world. Her fashions are still worn today by the rich and famous. Her legacy lives on in the many books and movies that have been made about her life. As put by Coco herself, "May my legend prosper and thrive. I wish it a long and happy life."